This next period of instruction is on a position that we use extensively out here at TFTT Direct Action Group. And in fact, it's a position that if we did not have, we would not be able to safely do many of the TTPs that we teach and put into practice also in operations. And that's this position right here. This is called Position Sul. Sul means south in Portuguese, because that's where my muzzle is generally directed. But it's not a dead south, because then it would be between my feet or pointed at my feet. But my inboard hand acts as a spacer where that muzzle has about a 12 to 15 degree offset from my body. So if this weapon was a discharge, that round would strike the deck anywhere between 12 and 24 inches from my body. No closer than 12 and no further than 24, because that's where my partner would be standing. Notice the Position Sul is not cannoned off to the side like this. I see this done incorrectly in a lot of different places I go to. They believe they're doing a proper Position Sul, but this is far from the case. If my weapon is cannoned like this, and I attempt to execute a stationary turn in close proximity with my partners, I'm flagging them with my muzzle. Position Sul needs to be in line with my spine right here. Notice that my forearms are against my body armor. Notice my elbow is not chicken winging up in the air. And notice that my wrist is not too high up here where it has an uncomfortable torque to it. It just rests right down here in a comfortable position. When a shooter is in proper Position Sul, you'll notice the slide of his weapon lays comfortably across the back of his support hand. He's not attempting to maintain a partial grip on it, he just lets it lay across the back of his hand. Notice that his thumbs are what we call pyramided. By pyramiding his thumbs, it allows him to end up in a proper finger-to-finger, wrist-to-wrist, thumb-to-thumb type shooting grip that we teach. But the key element of Position Sul is right here. You'll notice the contact between the index finger knuckle of the shooter's support hand and the middle finger knuckle of his shooting hand. That right there we refer to as the cam, the hinge, the pivot point. There's lots of different terms for it, but by maintaining contact between those two knuckles, it allows that shooter's weapon to come right back up, index on target almost instantly, and his sights will index to his eye. If he does not have that contact there, he is not in Position Sul. He simply has his weapon held up against his solar plexus. The history of this position. Position Sul was developed by myself and Alan Brosnan back in 1997. Because at that time, we were not only training, but we were operating with South American police officers, and we felt greatly endangered by some of their muzzle control. We felt that our chance of being shot by any of these men behind us are just as high as being shot by anyone in front of us. So we had to develop something better than a low ready position that everyone was using up until that time. When they say necessity is the mother of invention, Position Sul is a perfect example. We didn't want to develop it, we had to for our own safety. I feel that there's a lot of misunderstanding and misrepresentation of Position Sul taught by other instructors around this country and around the world. Men that have never received a proper period of instruction on it, they've simply seen photographs of it in a magazine or seen someone doing it from afar, and they draw their own erroneous and incorrect conclusions about when Position Sul would be utilized and what it was even developed for. So I'm going to tell you right now the 3 occasions when Position Sul would be utilized. Number 1, when you're in transit and you're not the cover man. Number 2, when friendlies cross in front of your sector of fire or arc of coverage. And number 3, for domination of crowds. To break these things down and explain exactly what I'm referring to is as follows. Number 1, when you're in transit and you're not the cover man. Now what does that mean? In transit, that means you're moving from point A to point B. Okay, but like the definition says, in great big flashing lights like Las Vegas, you are not the cover man. If you're the cover man, your weapon belongs up in that threat area or up in that target area where you've been assigned to cover. Number 2, the second occasion, is when friendlies crossed in front of your sector of fire or arc of coverage. What does this mean? In a typical training day, in a high tempo operational area, you'll see this happen 100 times among operators. When 2 men are stacked on, say, opposing sides of a door, one man's pied around an open door, he's getting ready to make entry through. As he begins to enter into that sector of fire of his partner, that muzzle would immediately collapse to Sul. The second that his body is clear of that muzzle, that weapon would come back up and that man would make entry through. We never flag our partners with our muzzles. We trust our partners never to flag us with their muzzles. This wasn't always the case, believe it or not. The first period instruction I ever received on close quarter battle about 25 years ago, they said, men, it's inevitable that during some fastest operation you will flag each other with your muzzles. What did I say? Roger that, because I was a lance corporal, okay? And it was normal back then, but it's not normal now. Tactics have come light years away from where they were 25 years ago. We no longer consider it blasé to flag each other with our muzzles. That's a major safety violation. Okay, so Position Sul solves that if friendlies are crossed in front of my sector of fire or arc of coverage. The third occasion would be domination of crowds. Okay, domination of crowds, this means I have a number of individuals under my sphere of control. They're complying with my verbal commands. They're not offering me any resistance, either verbal or physical, but I just don't feel comfortable putting my pistol back in the holster yet. There'll be lots of examples of this. Number one, going back years ago, could have been on an aircraft. Someone tries to get in the cockpit of the aircraft, they'd hook them up. Whoever would post in that cockpit door to protect it, and the pilots would post in what they coincidentally used to call the POD, or position of domination, okay, which was originally right here in the close guard or SF ready. Okay, but there's something inherently wrong about having a 357 SIG muzzle at head level of 150 complying passengers who are probably not terrorists. That man could post in that door in Position Sul and achieve the exact same thing. Someone starts to get up out of their seat, stop, get back in that seat. He drives that weapon to the target as the threat increases. So just to recap here, the three occasions when Position Sul will be utilized is when you're in transit, you're not the cover man, when friendlies cross in front of your sector of fire or arc of coverage, and domination of crowds. And I've seen things written like Position Sul should not be used when covering corners, okay? That's a very good insight right there. No, it shouldn't be used for covering corners because it's not designed for that. Anytime that I'm in an area I need to cover, that weapon belongs up, okay? But the Position Sul is made to get that weapon down to a safe angle so my partners can move around me. Here's something else I read in a magazine one time. I love this one. They said, I don't like Position Sul because it takes the gun out of the fight. Well, that's brilliant, because that's exactly what it's designed to do. It takes the gun out of the fight. Okay? Anytime that I'm clearing an outboard corner, or anytime that I'm on a threat area, my muzzle is up in the cover position. Refer to the 5 stages of escalation that will be covered in a future instructional video here. One that I recently heard was that when we're seated inside of a vehicle and we draw our weapon in Position Sul, that we're flagging our leg with our muzzle when we do so. Once again, this is coming from one of those individuals that never received a proper period instruction on it, and he's just drawing his own erroneous and incorrect conclusions about how it's executed and when it's supposed to be performed. When we're seated inside of a vehicle and we draw our weapon in Position Sul, we use what's called modified vehicular Sul. When the shooter brings that weapon out of the holster, the weapon immediately goes toward the deck. The muzzle's toward the deck, and he brings that weapon out in front of his legs, around the front of his knee, never over his leg, never over his femoral artery or his femur. It comes out pointing toward the deck of the vehicle. The next demonstration is to have the shooter presenting his weapon from Position Sul onto the target. This will be live fire, one shot to the head. Watch how the muzzle comes straight up toward the threat. He did not try to lock it down to a low ready first. Shooter, this is live fire. Ready? Punch. Weapon comes up, sights on target. He follows through. He does a scan and assess. He then recovers to Position Sul. If we have a weapon that requires decock resetting or single action safety such as 1911s, we will never do that in Position Sul. We will always come down to Position 3 first, decock, reset, and then come into Sul. What we've covered in this very short instructional video is Position Sul. We demonstrated the way it is properly executed. We discussed when it was developed, what it was developed for, and when it's actually employed. Any questions?